Hi, I'm Marcy Baker, and we're going to be working on a pleater board that helps us make these pleats for the mask that I'm working on. Many people are making masks or mask covers, which is what this is, for the healthcare industry during this pandemic. And if we can make those faster, easier, and even fun, which the pleater board will make those pleats fun, then let's do that. We're going to make this pleater board, or this is what it looks like, and I'm going to show you how to construct it, what to measure, and so forth. And what do we start with? We need a file folder or some other similar weight of paper, and make sure that you can sew through 2 layers, but then it's stiff enough that you can fold fabric around it and it not crumple. We're also going to need a ruler, a rotary cutter, and a mat. And also, because we're going to sew these together, we want to work with a either poly or 40 weight cotton thread, and the needles I recommend are a 116 or a 110/18 denim or leather. That's going to help stitch through those pieces of board very easily. To do the steps, the first step is to cut your folder in half. We're just going to fold it right, cut it right along the fold, and then we're going to cut 3 1-inch strips out of this top piece, 3 1-inch strips, and they are the length of the folder. And then the other one, the other half, we're going to draw on it the size of the shape or the finished mask that we're working on. So this is a 4 1/4 by 7 1/2, and if you have a different project, of course, you'll change the size to what it needs to be. Then for the very first, let's get back to those 3-inch strips. We're going to mark on those a line in the center, so it's a 1/2 inch, and that's going to give our for our pleat size. And then we're going to have a red line or another line for an 1/8 inch beyond that, so it's 5/8 inch, and that has to do with our stitching. Our stitching we're going to have a little bit lower in order to allow for the depth of the fabric not being able to get right into the stitch. So we have 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch marked on there. And to start positioning these onto our base, we need to mark 1 1/2 inches down from the piece. So let me scoot these down, and I think you can see this. So we have 1 1/2, and I'm using a marker, but I really recommend that you work with a pencil or pen, and you can use different colors. But a marker is pretty thick, and I have to allow for it whenever I'm drawing that the measurements are going to give me what I need. So this is 1 1/2 inches down there. And this is going to position the very first fin on here, and we're going to line up the edge up to that first line. So that's our first mark of our first pleat. And this is 1/2 inch here, and then our 5/8 inch, and we're going to stitch along the red line. And then after we've stitched that, then we come back and we add the next one, lining this up and stitching along there. And let me show you at the sewing machine what you're going to be looking for, or how you're going to line this up. We're going to put this on the green. Those 2 are already stitched on. But this third one, we're going to line it up with the green, and we're just going to start stitching here. You're not really going to have anything on your machine to line up. You just line up the paper here, the strip, and then you're going to stitch along here, making sure that this stays in line with the green line. You might have to play with this a little bit, but kind of keep it right there. And stitch along. Before you stitch too far, from the very beginning, you want to use a 3 millimeter stitch length or an 8 stitches per inch, because if you stitch tighter, like a normal stitch length, it's going to perforate these papers, and they're going to come apart very easily. So I learned that the hard way. Remember, 3 millimeter or 8 per inch, or longer even, but something to hold them together, but yet give us the sturdiness that we need. Okay, so these are stitched on. The other thing to finish this up on the stitching is stitch out here and out here about 1.5 inches away from the base, and that's just going to set those that they don't start ripping up from the ends. Okay, here we have our board, pleater board, and it is finished. We could use it right now. However, we might need to mark a few things to help us remember how to use it. and I'll demonstrate how to put the fabric in it in just a minute. Whenever I made the mask, I want the folds to be that the pleats are going down or pointing down rather than up. And so I need to make sure I fold that the right way. Turns out the way this works is that it's going to be like this. We're going to start here at the bottom. That's how a pleater board works, is you start here and you work your way up. So we'll mark start here and an arrow going that way. And then you just saw how I laid this down. This is the top of the mask and this is the bottom of the mask. So you want to write those on there in case you're doing something that is specific to your design. And also directional fabric. If you have this being the top, you'll want to have it so that I drew a flower on mine with a little leaf, and you might want to mark yours in some way that you can tell which way is directional fabric, because I made that mistake also. So here is the finished pleater board, and it has the little flowers that I mentioned, top of the mask, the start, and the arrow pointing up, the bottom of the mask. And I also drew in this line to continue or finish up the design rather than having it left out there. Not important, but just kind of completes the design. Makes it easier. And one other thing that we don't have written on here is what size fabric do we have to have in order to make this finished mask. We know we have a finished mask of 4 1/4 and 7 1/2. But if we are doing a different size, you may need to modify this. But here with the mask cover that's 4 1/4 by 7 1/2, and I want a 3 1/2-inch pleats, then the way you figure out the fabric to cut is you're going to do the 4 1/4, the finished size, and then we want 3 pleats, and they're 1/2-inch pleats, and we need twice that because the pleat goes up and down. So how do we add that all up, multiply it, and we get 7 1/4. That's how you decide what you're going to get. So if you need to make changes, you know you have the formula here to figure out what you need to do. Okay, we use the board by starting here at the bottom line where it says start, and we're going to line up our fabric, and I have 2 layers for my project. Then we're going to hold our thumbs holding this in place, and then use our fingers to fold that in and just catch that. And you want to push it down in there the first couple of times. Using that might be a challenge. And then we're going to do the next one, and then the next one, and we have got it right on as far as that's finishing the right size. We have our fabric in the pleater board. Now we need to press it. We can use a hot steam iron, or we can spritz it with water, maybe water with a little vinegar. I don't recommend using any other products because it may change the effectiveness of the mask. Definitely on other projects, use those products because they make it great crisp press. But on this, I would recommend not using those things. Just water or vinegar and water. A little bit of vinegar with some water. So we press that, and then we want to let it cool. Just take your hands off and give it 30 seconds to cool. And once it cools off, then you can pull it out and you keep those nice pleats in there. Makes it very easy to get those pleats. Anyway, I hope this works for you. You find it easy to do, and that you have the opportunity to make even more masks and to help out. I appreciate the opportunity to share this concept. And if you're interested in this mask cover that I have that goes over the surgical mask, you can find the instructions on my website, or you can watch the video that I have on how to make that. Enjoy your quilting. Thank you.